Oh, before we move on ahead.
All right, now it says it's working. So I don't know what happened before. It's probably my error, but I apologize. Okay. It's working now.
Before we move on from minutes, I did receive a communication from Sussman Shapiro, Jack Collins, who said that in our minutes of April the 20th, under the vote to participate in one or both of the tax programs of Executive Order 7S as in Sierra, under option 2, it said, in the minutes it's written low interest rate loan program. The loan word should be deleted. The motion properly does not include the word loan, but he thought since it's an official program that it would be wise to make completely correct the paragraph about the program. So we would delete the word loan and it would read a low interest rate program as it does in the actual motion.
So
okay, moved and seconded to adjust the minutes of the 20th. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, getting back to the sewer agreement. We call it the agreement to join the cost-sharing agreement. The attorney for the private beaches and our attorney have had some conversations which have not resulted in a final document per se. It should be very shortly, but it's not available at this time. So I guess we could do one of two things. We could call a special telephonic meeting when this is done, if it comes shortly, or we could defer it to the next meeting, depending on where things are with the whole program. I know that WPCA will be making a presentation to the Board of Finance tomorrow night, talking about earmarking the funds in their budget for the purposes of the payment under this agreement. So, unfortunately, we do not have the final agreement to show you at this time. So, as soon as that's available, I'll get it to you and we can decide whether we'll need to do a special meeting or whether that can wait.
Have you been made aware what the discussions involve? Is it anything more than what we asked for some clarification on at our previous meeting?
I think it's, according to Attorney Carey, they are minor points. There's not substantive points. So in the minutes we talked about approving it subject to his approval of the agreement, as well as the Board of Finance piece. I think there was a general feeling that we'd like to see the final agreement once he has approved of it. So if that's still the case, we will have to wait till a special meeting or our next regular meeting. I think what I understand from talking with the people from the private beaches, the pump station design work is in the final stages, and so in order for them to continue with clean water money and funding and so forth, they need to have the agreement done. So I could check at the point when it is approved by our attorney where we stand in that process, and if they really want to have it happen quickly, and providing tomorrow night the Board of Finance agrees to the money part of it, that we could get that agreement sent to you both, and we could do a telephonic meeting, something of that sort, just so everybody sees the final version.
And as far as what you're looking for, from the Board of Finance tomorrow. And at our last meeting, we didn't talk specific dollars, but it was, you know, somewhere around $70,000.
I think, yeah, 66,000 and change.
Right. And that money is already in their budget under legal or consulting. So I guess if I'm clear that what the Board of Finance plans to do is to identify those monies under legal or consulting and move them to a specific.
I think actually there's more money in one than the other. That is a mismatch for how we have to use it to pay the expenses. In other words, within the cost sharing or in the agreement to join the cost sharing agreement, there is more legal fees than engineering work. In the WPCA budget, I think there's more engineering money than there is legal. So there's a little imbalance between the two categories. So I think that tomorrow they will be outlining more than just that. They'll be more or less going through the whole program, but in particular, they couldn't just say, well, just use the money that's already there. We don't need an approval because there's more money in engineering than there is in legal, and it has to be the other way around to meet the terms of the agreement. Does that make sense?
No, not to me. It's this way. I know the money's there, and that I'm very happy about. So I will tune in tomorrow to get a little bit clarity on that.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll have that meeting tomorrow. Hopefully that financial piece will be settled, and then the lawyers are working diligently on getting the terms straightened out.
Yes.
Okay, the next item is that just before graduation, we have an Eagle Scout in town by the name of Alec Russell, who lives on Jericho, and he is a member of the troop in East Lyme. So because he was attaining the rank of Eagle Scout, usually there's a very nice ceremony. The troop decided to have a drive-by car parade with friends and family of the now Eagle. So everyone amassed on Lord's Meadow and then drove past the young man's house, and we had a couple, 3 fire trucks plus a bunch of well-wishers with decorated cars, and so they went by, and he looked very pleased, and the family, and so forth. We prepared I prepared a letter for Alec, which says, on behalf of the town of Old Lyme, I congratulate you on receiving the rank of Eagle Scout. Your Eagle Scout project, which included the construction and installation of 2 benches for the Lowman Land Trust, as well as various other conservation activities, will have a lasting impact on the community. You have shown tremendous dedication and perseverance, and we are proud of you for achieving the highest Boy Scouts of America ranking. The experiences and knowledge you have gained throughout the process will prove beneficial far into the future. I wish you all the best, and I'm confident you will continue to serve those around you and live in accordance with the Boy Scout law. Sincerely. So it's I'm amazed how many of our young people are involved in scouting, because I think Old Lyme, sure, and I expect East Lyme have an unusually high number of scouts that achieve Eagle, which is, I think, nationally something like 4% of the scouts. So that's very good. Next, we have appointments. Some of the boards and commissions have appointments, which are July instead of January. And so we have some appointments to make this evening. For the Lime Senior Center, these are 3-year terms ending in July of 2023. We have Donald Abraham, Joan Van Bison, Jane Folland, and Kathy Lockwood. Those are for renewals for the Lime Senior Center Board. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on them? All right. All in favor of the nominees? Next up is the Ledge Light Health District Representative, Tom Gataqua, a term ending July of 2023. Have a motion, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Good. And last, we have the Connecticut River Gateway Commission, Suzanne Thompson, a term ending in July of 2023.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay, again, unanimous. Thank you. We will notify them. Next up is general COVID information. The beach opened in May 23rd, and I think things have been going quite well, really. There have been a couple of days when the beaches have had to be closed, and it's been a bit of a challenge because with the Miami Beach, it's a big beach, and the responsibility for governing the number of people on the beach and so forth is really with Miami Beach, but they do have a volunteer security person in charge and some regular security people, and we help out by assisting them with a ranger. As I think you know, the gate to Miami Beach has been relocated from the end of Hartford Avenue to be off of Pond Road. That helps divert some of the traffic from the end of Hartford Avenue, where we have the end of Hartford Avenue, our beach, which takes 70 people, and the 2 restaurants, and to an extent Swan, the beach at Swan as well. So that is working out reasonably well. The parking lots are operating at 50% capacity, and the times I've been there, there's been a steady flow of people, but I think it's quite manageable. And on occasion, we've had to close the beach due to capacity reasons. We do still have those large electronic signs that can announce that the beaches are full. And pretty much, I think, with this kind of weather we're experiencing, Rocky Neck is closing fairly regularly in the late morning, so we're getting the overflow from that. So it's taking a good bit of manpower, but I think it's working out pretty well. I've not heard really too many complaints. So White Sand Beach, the road paving has been wrapped up, so we're back to normal on the parking lot there. The Haynes Park has been operating as a beach successfully, and so I think that I'll talk about the rowing situation there as well. But in terms of the beach, I think that's working out well.
Tim, I know, I think this note came to you or CC the Selectmen from Miami regarding some concerns on Miami and in particular with some visitors going on private property, which is what we had seen a few years ago. And I think there was concern about private parking, the permanent parking lots. Have you had a chance to follow up with that author of that letter?
With the
correspondence we received came through the town email.
Well, concerning Miami, just because the amplification goes around, it's hard to get all you're saying there. But you're wondering about the parking itself, or
no? I'm wondering.
Maybe if you push the mic the other way, because I think what's interfering.
Actually, I can't do much more than this because the recent recordings have not picked up my voice very well. One of the reporters from the Connecticut exam already told me that.
Yeah, but I think that's for the camera there. Yeah, which is anyway.
Well, if we're just coming there, I don't know that I'm going to pick up very well, so I'll try here. We received a letter in our email from a Miami resident, a former board member, with some concerns on Miami Beach, as well as some concerns that he's heard from the private parking lot owners. And I'm wondering if you've had a chance to follow up with that person who wrote that letter.
Are you talking about the parking lot on Pond Avenue, or Pond Road rather?
I'm not sure which parking lot he was referring to, but apparently he reported in his note to us that people park, or there were instances of people parking in the permanent lots and then going to the beach and finding out that the beach was closed, and so not being able to go on the beach. And there were some issues then when they went back to their car, either, and I'm not really sure the specifics of it.
Well, we told the permitted lots that there would be a 50% capacity. They should it's hard for a parking lot owner to know whether or not a beach or more than one beach is closed, because it could be that the two town beaches, which are a total of 100 people, will close, but that Miami still has capacity. As I said before, the capacity issue at Miami, we will be informed by the Miami officials whether they have capacity or not. It's not up to the town of Old Lyme to determine whether they're at capacity. So if somebody parks in a private lot, likely they're going to a beach, but there may be a few that would not be going to the beach, might go to an ice cream shop or something. But it's hard for a private parking lot to know whether or not the beaches are open or closed. Now, talking with the president, he maintains that Miami has not reached capacity, although I can't say for sure. I mean, this would be really up to them to say. I think our police officials think that the Miami is quite full, but I think we need to leave that determination to the people, to the officials of Miami Beach. So if somebody pays to park and walks to the beach, I don't know how they are to know exactly whether the beaches are open or not. Because even with our own beaches, depending what time of day they show up, our beach could be open, and then a half hour later it could be closed. So it would be difficult for the lot owner to tell the visitor beaches are open, beaches closed. They don't have a walkie-talkie or something.
Now, if they say if everybody comes down Hartford Avenue and the beach is closed, is there anything on that sign saying beach is closed? So say if they take a right and go down towards, Portland or something, they know the beach is closed, so why even try parking?
I think the big lighted sign at the foot of Hartford Avenue does say if the town beach is
Well,
closed.
the Soundview beach, but not the Mountain
Yeah.
beach.
And so I guess if you're coming in to park, it's awkward. I guess you would have to see whether that sign indicates there's a closure, and that might not mean whether Miami is open or not. So it's not like Rocky Neck with a single point of entry, and you can definitely say the beach is open or closed. And so I can understand, I guess, if somebody were to walk to the park and walk to the beach and then return to their car and said, gee, I just walked down there, it's closed, can I leave and will you give me a refund? I'm not sure what the parking lot attendant would say. So it's an awkward situation because you have basically two different authorities. One is the town and one's Miami Beach. And so if the town was clearly closed, Miami might still be open. Whether the parking lot people could somehow communicate with somebody by a cell phone or something at the front gate, they might be able to check every so often and say, are you still open for customers? And if the answer is yes, then they'd be in good faith allowing somebody to park and pay. If it were closed, they could say, well, I understand the beaches are closed. If you want to simply go to Kokomo's or walk the streets and wait for something to change, you're welcome to do that.
Do you plan on responding to this person that wrote the letter?
I'll have to find that email because I don't think I've seen it yet.
Okay. Because I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah. And other than maybe the operators of the parking lots checking periodically with, I would say Miami would be the likely one to speak to.
Well,
I can't think of a good
this
system.
property owner from Miami that wrote the letter, and a former Miami Beach director.
So they were probably on foot, right?
He was commenting on some of he had questions of security on Miami Beach, and he had questions of parking on permanent lots.
Because I saw something last week where somebody from Miami thought that they could get on the beach with a pass of some sort, and as we know, the way the court ruling works, nobody gets a priority, so. But then Frank Pappalardo sent me something later saying the problem's been solved, whatever that means. So I don't know if that's the same one you're speaking of. Might not be.
Doesn't sound like it. If you hadn't seen this email, it probably is a different issue.
Yeah. Well, it's a difficulty in the situation because some people want to go down there and go to one of the restaurants, bars, and so they would still want to park. So it's
But this one was clearly concerned about security and parking. So because it is a long-term resident, if you could give them a call, I think it would be
okay. Well, you can give me the name and I'll check it out.
I'll forward you the email.
Okay. All right. With respect to positive cases, as of Friday, there were 19 cases. Going back to March, I think we've said before, we do not hear the disposition of any of the early cases, so these are just accumulating statistics. I was notified today that there is a 20th case, which is a death that was reported through Emergency Management Director. So this looks to be a brand new case. It wasn't somebody on the list in terms of the age profile. So I've got to learn more about that. I asked Dave, I said, well, if somebody died from it, you would think if they had it, they might have been reported already as diagnosed. So I've got to look into that. But it could be that we have 20 cases with 2 deaths, but as of Friday it was 19 and one death, which we've been reporting all along. So we're still having new cases reporting, which is not surprising. I don't know if some of it could be attributed to the testing that is becoming more prevalent and so forth, but we get this information from Ledgelight, so that's the only source we have. Okay, and the projects, the Soundview sidewalks, we had a meeting just 3 hours ago. You want to report on that?
Sure. We had our meeting, as Tim said, we had asked a previous meeting for some preliminary cost estimates for the discussions we've had on work for Hartford Avenue and Shore Road. And right now we are looking at being over budget by $145,400 if we do nothing, if we make no changes, which of course we're going to look into what our options are. So we've asked our engineer to go back to the drawing board and give us some cost estimates with some changes in mind for both Hartford Avenue and Shore Road. I think because of the pandemic and people out of the office, our engineers having a hard time getting feedback from CONDOT, so I have also put a call into CONDOT today. One of the things I'm going to ask CONDOT for is what are our options in general if there are any other grant opportunities, so that we can throw that into the next mix. We would do nothing because we're going to be set up for another grant pot, or we will have to make some changes. There's going to be some more discussion next week. We get the revised numbers. But all along, this was a connectivity grant, a grant to connect Lower Hartford Avenue to Upper Hartford Avenue with the hope that we would have enough on for Shore Road too. And that was how we interviewed our engineers. It would be great if we could do both for $400,000, but it's appearing that unless we make some reductions on Hartford Avenue, we won't have enough for Shore Road, which is basically a sidewalk with removal of signage, and that has to be approved by CONDOT, which our engineer would like to send in that planning document to CONDOT next week, but we hope to hear from the CONDOT representatives with some answers to the questions the engineers had first, and I would like to hear back from them to see what other options possibly could be there for us, so that we could continue the aesthetically pleasing plan we had for Hartford Avenue. That's it.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Thanks. Next one is the Mile Creek Bridge. The utility wires have been moved slightly to accommodate the work at the bridge, which will involve a crane lifting the old bridge off the abutments and ultimately relocating the new bridge sections onto the abutment. We expect that the work will start toward the end of June. No exact date as yet. I think there are 3 sections of bridge that are being fabricated in Massachusetts. They are then trucked down to Old Lyme, and they want to swing them into place from the trucks, actually. So before that happens, of course, they have to remove the old bridge and prepare the abutments. In anticipation of that, we will be putting up detour signs at various points in town, Route 156, as well as both sides of the bridge, to indicate the bridge is out. We just finalized a townwide mailer that will explain. Probably the more difficult side is the east side, which would be the Mile Creek School side, because there are a number of streets that probably people take that go over the bridge on the way to town through Mile Creek Road. So automobiles, SUVs, pickup trucks and the like could detour from Mile Creek via Button Ball Road down to 156 near the Shoreline Mower store there. Trucks with a lower clearance or larger trucks should not use Button Ball because of the nature of that bridge. They should go to cross lane, and depending upon the height of the truck, they may have to go all the way to the end of Mile Creek down near Clark Veterinarian. So the signs will be installed, and that work will hopefully be underway within a couple of weeks. So it's about a 2-month proposition, I think, 2.5 months. So once they get moving, things should move along very nicely, so hopefully. The next is the Soundview sewer work. There have been crews doing borings in Route 156. I think that's in anticipation of putting the force main that would come up Portland Avenue and head over to East Lyme. So they have some crews out there on the street looking at that. Connecticut Water, as we know, is still working for until the 19th on south of 156, and then at that point they'll move to the north side of 156. And the Old Lyme Shores is actually doing their work with respect to the water pipes in Old Lyme Shores, and they are engaged in doing that work now. So it's a very busy place, as we expected. So I think things are doing as well as possible. I know there's some issues about the Old Lyme Shores storage yard there. There's it's in a residential area, and it's not easy for the people closest to it. So there'll be some hopefully improvements made on dust control and when they start working and so forth and so on, out of deference to the local people. So there's not much to report on the Soundview sewers themselves or the common assets at this point. So, any questions on that? Next thing is the opening of Town Hall to the public. We have been closed since the middle of March, and so come Monday next, the 22nd, Town Hall will reopen with restrictions. We're going to keep the front doors that we normally use closed and locked, there is a lockbox on the mail slot there so that people can continue to use that. And we would urge, or we are actually requiring people to use the mail, the internet, or dropping communications through the lockbox for tax payments, for dog licenses, and for beach passes. And even the town clerk asked that recording of documents with the town clerk should be done in the same fashion. The reason being that when we reopen, due to the social distancing and limiting number of people in town hall, obviously when people pay their taxes, we can have 15 or 20 people waiting to pay their taxes at the tax collector window. So if we have everyone do this remotely, that will take a lot of people out of the building. That'll be really very important. So we will be using the double doors coming into the foyer at the meeting hall. We will have what we call a greeter who will make sure that the person coming in has a face mask and ask what department they'd like to visit and ask a few questions. If, say for instance, land use already has 2 or 3 people visiting them, then we will have overflow in the meeting hall itself for people to wait until there's a space available. Let's see, we have placed some of these hand sanitizer devices here and there in the building, and some of the offices will be slightly changed with either plastic partitions to separate the public from the staff. A couple of offices will have a Dutch door type of a door put in with a half door with a shelf, as opposed to having the people come into the office. That'll be the first selectman's office and the assessor. If people wish to speak with a designated staff person, say like the zoning enforcement officer or finance officer or whatever, we ask that people call for an appointment so that if they'll be expected and it'll be more efficient that way. So when they come in, they can say they're here to speak to the tax collector, town clerk, whatever, and then they'll have an appointment and then they can make arrangements to meet up. So I think it'll be a period of getting used to this new method of working, but we will be this person at the front door will hopefully be a major help to field questions and to get people to go where they need to. So there is a communication. There'll be much more detail on the website about this, so that will be available. But come the 22nd, the town hall will be back open for public access.
Will be fully staffed, or will it be in?
Yeah, pretty much so. Okay, Park and Rec. The Parks and Rec Commission has met and come up with some opening procedures themselves, and essentially the parks will be open. Various sports such as soccer, lacrosse, baseball, one could practice as opposed to team sports. So if you wanted to play catch or soccer, just do some passing drills and that sort of thing, that will be acceptable. I think the group would be no more than 5 people, but no physical contact in terms of playing a small game of soccer or something. If you just want to pass the ball, that's fine. Bat the ball to each other, that sort of thing. Tennis will be okay. And basketball, if you want to simply shoot hoops without, trying to play a game of scratch basketball, bumping into each other. So we're hoping that people will do the smart thing and not have physical contact and no team or groups playing sports. The rowing programs, the Rowing Association, there was discussion with the school and the boathouse, but the Rowing Association has a protocol to allow rowers to do their organized rowing activities. I think these two would be ones and twos as far as the shell sizes. I don't think they're getting into the larger ones. And they will be putting out their rules and requirements, but rowing will be able to function. So we're treading lightly, and soon actually with respect to Haynes Park, the bathroom building is to be replaced, and I think July 1st is the date when the bids will be due for that bathroom building. So there'll be some construction activity during the summer in that location. So I think there's been an agreement in concept between some of the rowers who have a property to the east of the park to govern the number of boats and when they can go to the docks. And essentially it's to be done between the early morning and 9 o'clock in the morning, that the people from the people who have that building could transport their boats up until 9 o'clock. So it's coming along, and I think it's good that we can get people active. I also saw a communication. This was after the Park and Rec had their meeting and so forth. But the health district came out saying that the playgrounds can be open, which I was sort of surprised about because it didn't have any requirement that they be sanitized every so often. So, but I think the health director indicated that the age group that would likely be using the playgrounds are a very low risk at contracting COVID, and should the disease get on the playground equipment, why it's outside, it's warmer weather and all that stuff. So they determined that notwithstanding the risk, it's tolerable, and it's good to have children socialize and play on the equipment, should the parent decide that's a good idea. So
didn't they also suggest we have some signage?
Well, the last signage was going to be playground closed. So,
yeah, well, I meant
yeah. So
if we do allow by their guidance to open that we need some signage that recommends, the 6 feet apart and capacity.
Right. I think we could try that. We'll see how long they last, but we could maybe fasten them to the fence leading into the playground, that sort of thing. But not all parents will think that's a good idea, so that's fine too. But
Yeah, I think he also had mentioned, that we put on the signage that the playgrounds aren't going to be sanitized. So it's kind of play at your own risk and follow the...
Yeah, it didn't say anything about the sanitizing of the equipment, which would be pretty complex because some of these playgrounds are pretty good size.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that's a reasonable recap of where we are with the parks. Okay, I guess we're on to new business. There will be a presidential primary on the 11th of August. It will be held in the middle school gymnasium. People can park in the parking areas surrounding middle school, which would include the lot behind center school, near the firehouse and around even in the junior parking lot in the high school. This will be a dry run for the actual election because the primary may not attract so many people, but it'll at least give them a shot at it. So there will be, both parties will have the primary, and so the registrars are working to have the checkers and all the various people that are needed all ready to roll. So that is August 11th at the middle school.
And it's my understanding that the people working at the poll will have PPE, so that the voters will know that obviously they're going to need masks, but that the people serving them that day will also have protection.
Yeah, I think it would be common sense to wear a mask when you come to vote. The checkers and customer contact people will be behind a plastic barrier of some sort, so that'll help out. But that'll be the typical probably 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. schedule, I believe. So that should be an eventful thing. Next is the Old Saybrook Rotary we mentioned before had contributed $2,000 for the personal protective equipment for our emergency services departments, and that those funds have been received and some items have been purchased. I got a call this past week from the president of the Rotary, Gary McCauley, who indicated that they are going to do a second round donation in the form of 40 gift cards totaling $2,000 for 2 restaurants in town. And so our social services director has the cards and will be distributing them. But this again is very generous. This now makes a total of $4,000, and we thank the Hideaway and La Scarpetta for participating in the program. And so we have received the cards, and we will certainly thank the Rotary for their very generous second donation. So we are now to the point of public comment. So
all participants have been unmuted. All participants have been unmuted.
So we ask members of the public if somebody would like to, they could turn off the radio and any public comment there? Okay. All right.
I'm waiting. I'm just waiting for it to be a little quieter.
All right. Any public?
Okay. This is me. Are you there?
Yes, we can hear you.
You're talking with the Board of Selectmen. Do you have a public comment? I guess not. So,
Patty?
No, wait, can you hear me? I'm here. This is Mary Daly at 9 Portland Avenue.
what's your name again?
Mary Daly,
All right, Mary Daly.
9
Yes.
Portland Avenue. Yeah, I just have a question regarding the cost-sharing agreement and the 70-30 equation or percentage. You know, we've been trying to get information from the WPCA other than slogans or marketing slogans. And what actually goes into that 70-30, how they came up with that. And we feel that there's no common denominator since there's no common EDU being applied across all properties involved in this joint effort. And there's no real numerator because the last draft from the WPCA of the properties that are targeted to be sewered for Soundview and Area B, it's actually missing whole streets. So we're just wondering where are the actual facts that will support that 70-30 equation. Thank you.
Okay, what I can tell you is that the private beaches and the Soundview, the town WPCA talking about Soundview, agreed on a total of 900 and some odd EDUs between the four different entities, and each beach designated how many EDUs it had as a percentage of that total. So that's how the ratio is calculated. So each beach has a specific number. They're all added up. They add up to 900 and some odd, and I think it's 272 within Soundview equate to 29-point-something% of the whole. In terms of the specifics, I guess if you really wanted to understand each beach's number and so forth, you'd have to speak to the beach president, I suppose. But that's as much as I know about how it's been calculated. So.
Well, thank you. I guess that is what I'm trying to get to is what is the common factor, the common denominator, that I understand the math, but I'm just asking how did they get to that? If there isn't a common factor that households can be judged by or are being judged by, my understanding there isn't. So I don't know how these numbers can be justified emphatically. I just don't. And there isn't anything in any of the reports that I've seen, and I've looked at most of them from the beginning to the end. There's nothing really substantial in the report that supports the 70-30 split like that.
My only recommendation is I guess you could speak with the individual in Miami, Old Colonial, I'm sure, satisfy yourself with their count to see if then that total of 900 some odd is calculated, and then do the math. So that's what I know.
I was hoping maybe the town would question it.
What's that again?
I was hoping maybe the town representatives, the selectmen, the Board of Finance, would have questions along those lines. The same as the people of Soundview do. The same questions. How did that get calculated? What is the basis for it? Not just, okay, this is an EDU, but what is saying that there's 272 EDUs if the EDU factor is not the same across the board, and it isn't.
I think Prendergast should have her.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If she got, Rich Prendergast should have that answer for her.
Anyone else for a public comment? All right.
All participants
Okay,
have
I
been
guess
muted.
we're ready for other business that the selectmen may have.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Fireworks. What? Some people have been asking about that.
I have to try to reach Commissioner Lehman because about a week and a half ago during the call, I asked whether the firework might fall under the same crowd
As the beaches.
as the beaches is. Yeah, and
I asked Dave Friday night on that call, this COVID update call that he usually gives us.
yeah.
I asked him that question, and he was going to look into it because he was also under impression when you guys spoke, and I think he asked the same thing. Nobody's gotten back to them or you either.
Yeah.
So mentioned something about possibly, using the same formula as the beach, if that can be done.
Yeah, and I think while the field could accommodate a lot of people with that proper separation, being that it's done at 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, you'd have to have probably some people walking around to make sure the clusters were properly spaced. We would not be using the buses because that would crunch people into a small bus. And there's probably adequate parking around. I mean, worst case, I guess if you parked at the shopping center, if that was the closest thing you could find, you could walk from there. It might be a 10-minute walk or something. So, and hopefully people would be coming in gradually and not in a great big cluster. It's not like you have to go through a turnstile and all that. People come in different ways. So I think if we had clearance to have the event on the field with some regulations about spacing, I think one could argue that just like a beach, we could space them out properly.
And what do you guys think the normal turnout was there?
It's hard to know.
When you walked over, maybe 1,000, 900. It's not.
I think
packed.
it's not huge compared to some, and we have never publicized it out of town intentionally, so it tries to keep it local.
Well, it's never been like squish standing room only. It's always been very, very nicely spread out as it is.
I think 900's
Probably a fair number.
Yeah, because you have people actually sitting in the back of the center school parking area. So
Yeah.
it goes all the way down. People could.
So if like we measure off the field in between the high school and the middle school and come up with a formula, we'd probably pull it off. But
I
like
think
I
so.
said,
Because
Dave's going to check into it.
you can't use the infield of the track,
Right.
but you
We
can.
never have.
People have used the center school parking. They're up against the middle school. They're out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Use that, what do they call it, junior lot?
Way
the
down.
high school.
yeah.
I don't think we've ever had a problem with parking, but like you said before, right?
Yeah.
We have the bus if it happens.
So, I hopefully Commissioner Lehman will. Give him a call tomorrow.
Because I'm sure we're, getting down to crunch time here if we want to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think exiting would probably be the only concern I have. I mean, we do all, people arrive at different times. I've never really seen it back up there, but exiting after the fireworks, we might have to have some pedestrian.
You can have an officer or something
Yeah.
there, but I don't think that would be a
Yeah, I mean, just.
huge issue.
No, I don't think any of it's a huge issue, but I think that's probably the only area.
Well, at the
where
end-
we congregate a little bit.
We could ask the people to park slowly. Not a mad rush.
Yeah,
Particularly if it's a nice evening. Okay.
So is it like, are we entertaining the idea of possibly still having it? If
Oh,
it
I
can
think
be?
so.
I'm not
Everybody
against,
majority?
I'm not against it.
Yeah, okay, all right.
It might be a little bright spot that would cheer people up.
Hopefully. and the other question I was asked by Trooper Weber was he wanted a little bit more control of his budget on the building. In the years past, with all the turnover, Phil has been taking care of it, all that. And he's more willing to, since it's his building, he's planning on staying here 8-10 years, that he's willing to take charge of this instead of.
Well, we probably still want Phil to be.
Oh, Phil can oversee that he's getting good product, but he says there's a lot of lag time. So he's like, if he gets his three bids and turns them all in, Phil's
Well, so long as it's
stamp of approval, can he continue on? I guess he wants to put in a window on the inside. It's a safety thing now, especially with COVID and everything else. So.
Well, all right. Maybe we can have a session with the two of them and understand what he's got in mind. But, Phil should still be the facilities man. And if he, in terms of selecting vendors and stuff, we'd want to figure that out. But if he has some ideas that he'd like to implement, depending on what the cost is, we'd have to get him approved if it's...
Oh, yeah, no, just the normal upgrades and approvals and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, well, we can orchestrate.
It's kind of refreshing to hear that they want to.
He wants to make it nice and understand that, there's nobody in control of these buildings, the town hall, so we've got Phil as the go-to guy, but he's like, I can do all that and do it quicker and be on top of it. He goes, I'm here every day. That was about it. We talked about the last 3 years, so we're ready.
Okay.
Kind of along the same lines, the cost for the updates that we've had to do because of the pandemic, which we know we're going to have to live with for some months. The towns, I think I asked this a couple meetings ago, the towns were asked to submit to the state their estimated costs for COVID through June. But now it appears that we're going to be having some additional costs that I'm not having seen these lists. I'm not sure what was covered exactly. Were the changes we made to the beach, were they part of the submission to the state? Because then we'll get some back from FEMA and the rest from the CARES Act. I know we're doing all these changes at Town Hall. I'm assuming those went into the update. I guess I'm just checking to see what all our costs are and if they had proper approval. I mean, we have a banner across Halls Road. I'm assuming that went into the whole thing. I just want to make sure we aren't not calculating our costs. And if some of the things, for example, that Chris just raised for the police that are needed for keeping our policemen and public safe, those should be included in whatever we're gathering also. But I think we have to get those in, if we haven't already, pretty soon. So do you know if these things have been included?
I'm hoping that submission that Nicole put in, which was in the $3,000 range, was one of numerous ones that will be coming through. Looking at other towns, some of them had 6-figure, 7-figure amounts, which is kind of astonishing. I think what she said is she had to put in what had been reported plus what she could forecast. That, of course, we know that just the whole Soundview police effort, there's going to be a lot with that, and there's going to be a whole lot more. So I can't imagine that in the long run there wouldn't be almost like quarterly submissions as to what the towns are putting through. I can't imagine that some of these towns, which have these very huge numbers, put requisitions in for all this stuff and, have spent the money, so to speak. So obviously our initial amount in the newspaper was one of the smallest in the region. So, but that's not to say that's the one and only shot. So, I think Nicole followed the instructions as to what have you spent as whenever she put that together, and then project to June 30th. She probably could have said, gee, well, if the beach is open, because at that time the beaches were not open, and so forth. So I can't imagine that it's like, okay, this is your shot to get some money, and if you didn't put in a high number, you're not going to get more money. I think it should be one of a series of submissions. So we'll see.
Okay. And do you know when the library is going to open?
The which?
The library? And how that our budget is going to end?
I see them digging like crazy up there on the lawn. That might be that terrace thing that they're building, but I thought it would have been all done by now. But I know that there's still more requisition money to go, and I've been trying to get a hold of the director, because the way it works is when we got to 50% spent, the state library grant money would be the next money to be used. And we've gone for 2 submissions now past 50%. And they've sent them to us, and I've been trying to get a hold of the director to understand when are we going to get those dollars in from the state, because I thought they were supposed to come right in. So that would take us, and then we'd finish up the very end. So we've spent more than the formula called for, so I'd like to get that reconciled.
Okay, good. Triple E is my next question. I had emailed Steve Mansfield maybe in February before COVID about could he give us some information on how we should begin considering what we're going to do for Triple E after last fall. And he had told me at that point he was going to or he emailed me back that they were going to be going to some state-sponsored program and have some ideas on Triple E. Then COVID hit, obviously, and I haven't wanted to bring up anything else with him, but about a week ago I did send a message to Dave Roberge on that, because, last year we had the death or 2 associated with that in this area, and I'm not sure if in our budgeting we've talked about it for this year, a plan for how we're going to do mosquito abatement as a result, but it's really time, I think, that maybe Dave and
Well, certainly Mansfield. I mean, we have been spraying with our normal spraying company. I don't know what the difference is between regular spraying and Triple E spraying, if it's a whole different formula or what, but they have been out for weeks now spraying. So I don't know whether there's a different type of spray for Triple E that would otherwise not be used.
Well, as I recall last year when we were talking about this, and I'm trying to remember that our expert who does our mosquito abatement had indicated something about you have to get out there early to get the larva at a certain point in the life cycle. So we probably need to get some guidance on that.
Do you know whether it's a different spray altogether?
I don't. And I just think it was the timing. And we had a really wet spring last year that led to, wet summer actually.
We could check with IMCO, our vendor, and see, because I know they've been at it for probably almost 2 months now, because we pay so much per spray. I've seen a number of invoices go through. But we can check if there's a different treatment for the Triple E. And the timing and so forth.
Okay. Because last year, because it was, so imperative, we had to close all the parks by dusk, get everyone off. I think it was around 5 o'clock. We had everybody had to be off the parks. And, so a little planning this year, since you know that it's here, would be advantageous. I got a request to ask you about vacation carryover because of COVID. A couple of meetings ago, Tammy had mentioned that some of our employees were taking their vacation during their time home. But apparently, and I don't have any specifics, but you probably would, there are some employees that would like to actually carry over an additional week of vacation time as opposed to their 1 week allowance. And I don't know how the whole board feels, but given the fact that we have been in this pandemic, it seems reasonable to me that the supervisors are okay that we make allowances for those employees that request that and have leave for it.
I would say that vacation is for the whole year, and if because of COVID somebody has some vacation that they haven't used, that we can certainly talk about it. If they have a unique situation, I think probably the town's always been open to a modest carryover. The week is supposed to be it. Mm-hmm. What happens is that you have people who have been here getting substantial vacation, and if they wait until the fourth quarter to use the vacation, that makes it very difficult because, we're going to open up to the public next week. I have been talking to the staff for practically 2 months saying, start using your vacation because we're going to open to the public at some point probably, and we are now, toward the end of the fiscal year. We can't have everybody flooding out in the last part of June if we're open. So if people decided not to do anything about it, that's not helpful. If somebody is down to a few days over the limit, you might say, okay, because a lot of staff are actually not even in the building, and you might say, well, it's not very much fun to take a vacation when you can't go anywhere. So, well, that may be true, but it's not the town's fault. So, one should take vacation during the year and not wait until the last quarter to handle it. So I have been trying to encourage people to deal with it, even if they can't go to the Caribbean and enjoy themselves. The rule is you're supposed to use it or lose it. So I know there will be some accommodation. If somebody has a lot of vacation, it may not work out, because what will happen is that next year they will get new vacation, and if they have a whole slug of vacation from this year carrying over, that only makes next year more difficult, and then they'll be back next year trying to do the same thing. So I think we really have to look at each situation and make a decision and try to be compassionate. But I think people have been warned that, please take your vacation, because it hurts the town. If we have somebody with a lot of new vacation plus a lot of old vacation, that just makes the co-workers have to deal with their absence for a lot longer than they should have to deal.
Well, I think if you're open to looking at the individual requests, and because again, a lot of this is was out of the town's control and certainly out of the employees' control, I think that's good news to the employees that are interested, that you can look at them individual requests for merit.
Yep.
Thank you. Following up on my request about the economic Development Commission's reports. I think a couple meetings ago I indicated that the report was coming out, if anyone had seen it, and now it's widely available. I was wondering if we were going to discuss it at this board, or we're going to invite the EDC to present to us. I think I gave you the executive summary last meeting.
Was that, I have that. Now, is it 63 pages about, or 60 some odd? Because mine had
75.
through page 8 and then it skipped to 63 or something.
Yeah, I just gave you the executive summary. And a couple
Okay, so you
pages.
skipped the body of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
we could ask EDC to come talk to us, even if they wanted to do something even bigger, that would be fine. I mean, the town committed resources and the commission did a lot of work, so they should be able to explain it. It's been explained somewhat, but perhaps not quite as thoroughly as they might like. So we could have a session with them, or maybe even an individual program that could be televised and put on our website.
Yeah, I think both are good ideas.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll ask them about that.
All right, thanks. There's also been some publicity about the Amtrak, the Connecticut Railroad Bridge plan for Amtrak.
I saw that in the paper. Yeah.
And do you know where we're at with that decision and thought process?
Not more than I read in the paper. It's going to be Federal Railway, I guess, and it's a year or two off. I'm not sure just what year they're planning to work on that. They have to build a new bridge, I think south of the current bridge.
Yeah, slightly. Yeah, and then they were planning to take it down. I guess I was wondering, is there any discussion that we need to have in this board about that, number one, and number two, is there any value in this board looking at having a voice with Amtrak on this? Because would there be some value in keeping the old bridge for a pedestrian walkway or bicycle? I mean, I really don't know. First I saw about this was in the paper, and then I noticed that I think it is the Harbor Management Commission has been having some discussions about this proposal to the town.
Well, in Florida, I've seen in cases where they build a new highway bridge and they leave the old bridge for a fishing pier and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but
I doubt the railroad bridge would be.
You're still going to have to open it.
No. But I mean, they would never let us use that as a pedestrian bridge. That.
Not all the way, because you'd have to open it to let the
Yeah.
boats through.
I know. And even, getting to it, you have to go off with $1 million mile, I guess, and walk out there somehow to get to it, or maybe over
Well, they put them
near the country club. I'm not sure. You'd have to completely redeck it and put railings, and then it's the supervision thing about hangout. I don't know. It's
Well, I know it was approved by, I guess, must have been the proper authority in Old Saybrook, and the town here has to approve it, and I'm not sure which authority is responsible for that. So there's a lot of unknowns in my mind, because the first article I saw was in the paper also. Mm-hmm. So I just was wondering if you had any more update on that.
Maybe Devin or Paul, some of our reps would have more info.
You could maybe have an update by Amtrak or Federal Railway to both Old Saybrook and Old Lyme to brief town officials of what's.
So you didn't get anything from them at all on this? You didn't get an update from them at all on this?
I can't believe it.
You did not get anything from the Amtrak?
No, the only thing I say is I said it was the article in the paper. I don't believe I've seen anything as a communication from Federal Railway.
That sounds like what happened last time.
I think I clipped the article so I could look back and see what year they're thinking of starting this new bridge, but it'll be interesting to see, because I think the access, there are a couple of access from O-Line to get to the one by the country club and then one further down.
Yeah. Okay, so if you have an update on that, that'd be great. And then lastly, I had emailed you a couple weeks ago after asking me to ask if you put affordable housing grant application back on the agenda, which you responded when I talked to the chair of the Affordable Housing Exploratory Committee, which I did, and learned from that conversation that he had left a message with Michelle, and he had also, I guess at some point reached out to you and had a discussion. And the reason why I thought we should talk about it is the fact that because of our chair's research into the grant, he learned a few things, and I thought that the board should be aware of that. Apparently, it is a grant to the end of this month. It's potentially applications are being accepted. First come, first served for $15,000, but it's for affordable housing plan, as you guys know, we talked about that. But it is linked to a state statute called 830J, not 830G, which is what our Affordable Housing Exploratory Committee was, charged with looking at 830G and providing recommendations to the Selectmen for our purposes going forward. And so I don't think I'd probably say anything that Mike didn't share, or Mike Poliano, our chair, had spoken with you about, Tim, but I looked up 830J, it's called the Affordable Housing Plan, and at least once every 5 years, each municipality shall prepare or amend and adopt an affordable housing plan for the municipality. Such plan shall specify how the municipality intends to increase the number of affordable housing developments in the municipality. And then there's 2 more sections to it. So it's all the way down to the bottom of the zoning sections. So, in reality, that grant was really for something that we don't have. We do not have a 30J plan. And so what I had hoped is by putting it on the agenda, we could talk about what this board wants to do about that, since it's clearly a statutory requirement, and to my knowledge, we've never done that.
So nothing's been done previously either, right?
Not to my knowledge. Between all of us, I think we would have heard about it. I did put in a call to Riverside, but I never gotten a chance to call them back.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I sent the thing along to Michael, the chairman, and so I talked with him on the phone last week, and we both agreed that, the timing at this point is untenable. It's a first come, first serve and all that. So when I looked at it in the beginning, I was thinking in terms of the grant would be to assist the town to proceed to do something in a way of affordable housing, not to create a plan and all that. I think obviously this grant cycle is out. I think perhaps the focus should be how often do these grants come along. I would imagine they must come around periodically, because it was $500,000 in total. So if we were aware that there was another grant round coming to us, because Mike thought that it would require more professional help to generate a plan, not just we laymen. So I think it would be helpful to look at the paperwork again, find out who a contact person is, see if there's a regular grant cycle, and get going on it. I think with everything going on, it's going to be a little difficult. Now, the committee, if the committee would care to, once we got some facts together, if they would pick up the ball and run with it. I get, he was saying that their charge is not necessarily to do that, but I mean, I think that they would be an excellent group to shepherd the thing along if we could find out that there's another grant cycle in a year or say. And it's if it's a requirement to do the plan, it's like these dams we have at the lakes, you know, another mandate without, I guess maybe there was some money attached to it, but it's first I heard of it. So, but looking at that paperwork briefly when it first came in, it didn't seem to me that it was really going to help us do something in a way of affordable housing. So I shot it over to them and said, have a look at it. And since it didn't seem to be promoting doing something, because I think our present interest is what can we do in a way of putting up more affordable housing somewhere, and it didn't seem to focus on that. I didn't get the urgency. It's a mandate to do a plan every 5 years, and so if we
can thank Mike for that.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think now knowing this, because, man, I think he probably was the first one to ever find that in the statutes and let us know about it. I think I would recommend that this board consider who professionally might need to be on sort of an oversight board to begin to plan to meet 830J.
Wouldn't the committee, though, if we asked them to do it for us, wouldn't that?
Well, I kind of agree with Mike that we need some professional help.
Well, yeah, but
I'm thinking we might need to include planning, someone from the planning commission, because there's affordable housing in their requirements.
But if the committee could be the focal point, then that would take a lot of burden off of other folks. To the extent they needed some help from other areas, we'd be glad to help. But
I guess I think the committee is still valuable to us to do the background research on what we have available, what possibilities are out there. I mean, I still think that knowledge base, that research, that planning you do, I mean, you only had 2 meetings before today, will be valuable. But again, at the time we set the committee up, we didn't know that we needed to be doing, an affordable housing plan. And the job of them was to bring their recommendations to us to begin, next steps. And I don't think there was a sense of how urgent this really is then. So part of me thinks it would be better to hear first back from Riverside and find out what other towns are doing about 830J, and then maybe we can talk about it at our next meeting. And
wow.
What do you think about that idea?
Maybe we can have Michael attend and just have his 2 cents worth on it, because depending on how much effort it will be required and time and effort, we can figure out how best to approach it, because I don't think I could volunteer myself to spearhead the thing. If we could get the committee to help us through this and figure out the best way to attack it, that would be good. And if we have missed the boat on the grant, so then I'd be happy to try to contact whatever source there is for the grant and then find out more about that.
Yeah, I think that's good, but I think broader, we have to make a determination. Are we going to meet? Is the goal of the town? And I'll just throw this out there: to meet 10%, or is the goal of the town to be working diligently in the next 5 years to meet 3% based on the
Yeah.
data.
I think 10% would be a very unrealistic achievement.
Which was one of the reasons for the committee. I was really adamant that we include in there research such that we could go bring it to one of our legislatures leaders and bring that to the House or the floor or state floor, saying, you know, it's not reasonable for a town of our size to do 10%.
No.
But if we could share access to things with neighboring towns, and I brought this up to a meeting that I went to in New London, and people there said it's feasible. You know, for example, say East Lyme had more land to build affordable housing, but Old Lyme had more, say, jobs available for people that would bring them to this area. If we could work together to somehow share that, to reach that mandate of 10%.
Yeah, and the COG might be a vehicle for that too, but I don't know whether this program allows a regional approach.
Well, this program I went to in New London in the spring, because I wasn't sure that either, said that if we put the proposal together and bring it to the right people, that there's an openness to discussing that. And even Devin Carney told me in November that if we put something together, he'd take it to the House for discussion. So, I mean, there's people that see some, you know, desire to meet a goal as best as we can, and that we're making an effort to moving on this issue. And I think that's why I was saying if the committee can still work towards getting us some of the background information on some things, but we have a planning board that helps us identify what our priorities are, that piece is missing. I mean, I don't know how the committee could say, you know, pick a 10% for us without...
Well, it's like saying every town should have 25% budget surplus. You know, you can make a blanket statement, but there are certain areas where that's very challenging, and it just seems that we can only do what we, you know, obviously we don't want to bury our head in the sand and do nothing, but on the other hand, we have to be realistic, and hopefully whoever makes these rules can realize that not every town is going to be suitable for the 10% factor.
Yeah, but I thought this is what we had the Affordable Housing Committee to work with that.
Yeah, I think we ought to get Michael, we can do a little work in preparation and then have him come to the board and have a little talk about that particular requirement and see what he thinks, and if we can shift some of that. I mean, if it's supposed to be the selectmen to do it, then maybe we can ask for help, because it sounds like a big project, and with everything else going on, I just don't see how it's possible to figure this whole thing out. And we have a committee that's I think would be ideal to do it. So if it's not in the charge, maybe we can encourage that to be, if they would be willing. Okay, anything else?
That's all.
All right. Well, it's 6:20.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good enough. Thank you.
Work. Well, it's still going, Mary Jo. So it says a minute 34. So in case you talk to anybody.